I'm a great believer that brands are not built, they're discovered. So you cannot build a brand or an identity about something that is not true or that people don't believe about you.
Welcome to the Gies Download, a podcast from the University of Illinois' Gies College of Business. I'm your host, Tim Sinclair, and today our guest is Jan Slater, the first ever Chief Marketing Officer at Gies, though it wasn't named Gies at the time. And therein became one of Jan's greatest challenges, putting a name and an identity on a school that didn't have one. I don't always start at the beginning, but in this case, let's start at the beginning. What led you and your team at Gies, though it wasn't Gies at the time, to decide that we need to brand our business school?
Well, actually, business schools are probably some of the best branded entities in higher education. Because again, that's kind of what they do and what they teach. Um, this had nothing to do with me or we didn't even have really a team at the College of Business at the time. This was all the vision of Jeff Brown, who became the dean in August of 2015. I was serving as dean of the College of Business or College of Media at the time, and he and I knew each other from that. And I stepped down as being dean, and he called me one day and said, "I have a great idea." And I thought, "Oh dear God, what is that?" And he said, "I think you should come be the first chief marketing officer of the College of Business." And I said, "Okay, well, what are you thinking about?" And he said, "We need a brand." He said, "We people don't understand who we are. Um, we were only one of two top 20 business schools that didn't have a name in front of it. Wisconsin is the other one. But there were donors in Wisconsin who gave them a lot of money to not name that school. So it's always the Wisconsin School of Business. Um, and he said, "I want you to come and do this." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll do it. But you have to be able to invest in developing the brand, sustaining this brand, and building a structure to support that brand." And he said, "Okay." So I came in July of 16 and we started the process, and we actually launched the brand in the spring of 2018.
It's fascinating to me, and I'd never thought about it this way, and it was one of the first sentences out of your mouth was, when it comes to branding at universities, business schools would be sort of at the top of the list of who does it because that's what you teach. It's kind of like the architecture school has to have an amazing building.
Business schools are very competitive. It's a very competitive market. Those who play in the top 25 are powerhouses. Um, College of Business had always been, and this was undergraduate rankings, had always been in the low top 20s, sometimes in the top 25. But it is about identity and it is about awareness. And because a business education can't just be about the education, it has to be about the experience. And Gies was providing, well, it wasn't Gies at the time, but the College of Business was providing a really good experience, but nobody knew about it. And most of the students who came here still do actually are from the state of Illinois, which is great. But we have fabulous master's programs that draw from people all over the world. And we really need an identity to attract the best faculty because faculty hiring is super competitive amongst business schools. And that is what was really important. And it was also a need for a sense of cohesive pride. You know, everybody liked being here, everybody liked being at Illinois. The students felt good, faculty could do their thing, alumni, okay, but there was not this centralized feeling of pride and loyalty and wanting to be involved and needing to be here and feeling like this was an aspirational thing, not just like my safe school.
Your first day, week, month, whatever, in the new role, what was the challenge you were trying to overcome, or the problem you were trying to solve, or what was your focus? How do you go from no real branding slash identity to getting the ball rolling toward what Geese has become now?
So I'm a great believer that brands are not built, they're discovered. So you cannot build a brand or an identity about something that is not true or that people don't believe about you. So my first year actually was spent on talking, listening to alumni and faculty and staff and students who got admitted here but didn't come, and people in other business schools and people on campus, because the idea is to really find out how people who are involved with you perceive you. So there was a lot of people that had been connected with the College of Business, but we needed to understand how they perceived the college. And Jeff had a year under his belt as dean. And so we started a process. I spent my first semester actually looking at everything and talking to everyone within the college and looking at everything that this college had produced in terms of marketing material um, for like the past 4 years. And I had a big conference table and I pulled out everything that we'd printed and everything that we'd sent out and everything. And it was all absolutely stunningly beautiful work. None of it screamed to me that it was the College of Business at Illinois, and nothing looked like it belonged together. So the first challenge was you cannot just stop marketing until you get a brand. So recruitment for freshmen starts in the fall. I started in July. We had to come up with something that people understood about us, believed about us, and thought, oh yeah, I like that place. So we could use it for fall recruitment.
And you had 3 4 weeks to pull that together. Yeah.
We did. And actually, and I'll just tell you, Tim, when I came, there were 4 people on the communication staff in the College of Business, and I was the fifth. We looked at all that stuff and decided one of the things was that we were different. There was something about us that was different. Everybody can provide you with this great business education. We're all accredited as such. And so lots of our curriculum, academic things are similar. But there was something else different here that people quite couldn't put their finger on. So we used um, the line, not business as usual. And that's how we kind of moved into that. So we had something that we could build on that wasn't ostentatious, wasn't unbelievable. And so then we started doing, and I spent the first semester doing that. The second semester, we started doing in-depth focus groups with all of our stakeholder groups. And that is a real discovery period because you get to hear what these perceptions are straightforwardly. We did much different kinds of focus groups than people normally think of. We just didn't go in and talk to people and ask them questions. We asked every group that we talked to build a collage of how they felt about the college. And then within the focus group, they had to talk about what that meant. So we were trying to get to the sense of meaning, not just to words of how they described us.
Did anything surprise you? Like when what people came to the table with that you were like, "Whoa, that's interesting. I didn't expect that they would say or think or feel this."
There were several things. And, when Jeff started, his 3 priorities were access, innovation, and excellence. He was going to make sure that we had a lot of access for students, that we were going to be innovative in what we did, and we were going to have excellent programs and excellent faculty. And he talked about that when he interviewed for the dean's position. He talked about it the day that he got installed as dean of the college, and he talked about it the day he hired me. And what surprised me in many ways is everybody talked about how innovative we were. Now, that wasn't obvious. We were doing some innovative things, but it wasn't just in your face obvious because we just launched the IMBA January of 16. So it wasn't like people think, oh, they're just so grand. But I said to Jeff, you may not think about this, but people are listening to you. And we have to prove we're innovative because they all think we are, right? So there was that. The other piece was everybody felt really good about being here, but nobody had a lot of pride. And students, before anything, and I did ask Jeff this question when he hired me. I said, are you going to name this college? And he said, well, that's the deal, or that's the idea. And I said, okay, good. Well, let's think about that. And I can tell you later my little joke to him about I could only have, I think I've told you this, you could only have four letters in the person's name.
It worked out perfectly then. Well done.
That's great.
That's, by the way, that's what precluded me from giving $150 million to the school. Is my last name is just entirely too long.
I probably could have gotten Sinclair under that block I, but when you look at this block I, I knew we were moving to the block I, and I said, I got to have something that fits right under that block I.
With my gift, you couldn't have afforded the sign on the building, much less anything else. So,
Well, $150, right?
yeah, sure, that would have gotten you somewhere. Got a pamphlet made or something.
So there was this sense from the students that they really loved being here. They loved everything about it, but they hated going to these case competitions and people saying, oh, you're the Illinois Business College. We're from Ross. We're from Kelly. We're from that. They said, we love it here, but we don't feel like we're respected when we go out because we're just from a state school and we're just Illinois. And so they disregard us. We win those case competitions. And so they really wanted some more pride.
It can't be easy from a marketing perspective, branding perspective, to instill pride. Like, okay, there isn't pride. We want there to be pride. What is the what is sort of the line item case by case, like how you get from no pride to pride when you're a marketer? Is there a way to do that, or do you just say we're going to brand as best we know how and hope that's a byproduct?
Well, the brand has to emerge from the way people think about the college or the product, right? I don't ever think about it as a product, more of as a service. But we do have consumers and we do have people who are interested in us, and we have to be authentic. The hardest thing about branding is finding what you really stand for and making sure you continue to stand for that. So I call a brand a promise. It is what we deliver every day at every point of contact that we have with anyone who engages with us, and how they feel about that point of contact, how they feel about our messages. So to me, a brand is really about emotion. We obviously have to deliver um, the actual product. So we're delivering a great business college education. But there has to be more to it. And part of that is the experience that you have here at Gies. And one of the other pieces we found out from the students that people really hadn't thought about is this: the students loved coming in to the college as a freshman. Most business schools, at least in 2016, you came into the university and then you applied to get into the College of Business. And at Illinois, you got admitted directly to the college and you came in as a freshman and you did not choose your major till your sophomore year. As you know, we have a great event the sophomore year called Signing Day, where the students come out and declare their majors. But they loved the fact that they didn't have to come in and decide and have all this pressure on them. And they actually said in the groups that they loved the feeling that they got to come in and explore and they got to kind of find themselves. I call it test driving, right? You can come in, you take your core classes, you do a few things, you start with a business fraternity, you maybe take the resume writing, you could just do all these little things. So there wasn't any pressure, and you got to kind of discover what it is you loved. And then they would say, once you don't have this cookie cutter thing. We don't have to come in and do this, and this. We kind of get to figure that out. And then when we find, and this is exactly what they said, when we find our path, there's all these resources from the college that come and help us move forward.
It feels like more of a law school or even medical school model. Like you don't choose you're going to be a surgeon your first year, or you don't choose you're going to do case law or whatever your first year. You get a chance to explore. And I'd never thought about that in a business setting, but it makes lots of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And because we're a college of business, like engineering, you have to pick that place, right? You have to go to aeronautics, or you have to go to computing, or you have to go to electrical, or whatever it is, mechanical. So here, but you come into this college. And the other great thing about a college of business is accounting, finance, and business administration, which includes management, marketing, and all those other things. They all understand why they belong together. You cannot do business. You cannot have a business degree without knowing about all those things. In electrical engineering, you got to understand engineering, but you really have to understand electrical engineering. And so we give them these first year and a half to kind of explore the world of business and then figure out their space in it. Once we had all the focus groups done, we went into a big survey. We surveyed alumni, students, faculty, staff, and we specifically did graduates who had been out like 5 years. And we put together this survey that we called a perception map. We wanted to know people's perception. And so we asked them things about us, the college that we learned through those focus groups. And then we asked people how we compared to people like Northwestern, Notre Dame, Kelly School of Business in Indiana, Michigan, Ross at Michigan, and they got to kind of perceive what we were versus them. And literally, we put that survey in the field on August 15th. And at the end of August, Jeff told me that Larry Gies was going to name the college. And the first question was, what is that going to do to the brand? And I said, nothing. I knew nothing about Larry Gies. Most people didn't, but he was young. He was an entrepreneur. He was innovative, and he loved the school and he loved the students. And I said, we'll just play this out. We'll name it. We'll build the identity with the Gies name and the word mark, but the brand will still evolve. And so whatever that brand is, that becomes the Gies College of Business. The Gies College of Business doesn't become the brand.
Do you still believe that's true? What your initial thought, or has he helped shape it in ways that you didn't expect, or both?
The identity is definitely broader, but our purpose has not changed. And so people recognize us for who we are. And the great thing, well, there's many great things about Larry Gies. He has been a true steward of this brand, and he has influenced this brand, and he's been very involved in its evolution. But he epitomizes who we are. That was the greatest thing. And I remember saying to Jeff, whoever you get to name this has to be able to relate to our students, right? A lot of people who have named business schools, you don't hear from them, you don't know about them, and they come back to campus maybe once a year to do a donor reception, right? And the very first thing Larry said to me when we knew this was happening, we were planning the naming announcement. And I said, well, Mr. Gies, we have to figure out how to get some photos of you so we can use those in the launch. And I said, we can come to you for that, or you can come to campus, however you like. And he said, oh, Jan, I don't want any pictures ever of me in some wingback chair in my office. I want to come to campus. And he said, I want you to know this is all for the students. And I don't want any picture of me that doesn't include students. And I thought then, okay, right, he is doing this in the right way.
Can you at all quantify, either by story or actual metric, how things have worked and the success of what you started in 2016, where we are in 2025, and then obviously where you hope it goes even after you've retired?
There were several reasons that I believe Business on Purpose has been a success. And that is really the brand. It's not a tagline. It's not just a slogan. We use that as to really talk about who we are and what we do and what we promise. And that is to intentionally provide you a transformational education and experience that will lead you into a purpose for your life. And we deliver on that every day. Uh, but the great successes were that we involved everybody in this process. There were hours of communications and conversations and discussions. And we did all this research. I tell everyone will say, I want to do what you did. I said, well, first of all, you don't have to do what we did because you're in a different category, a different competitive market than we are. But you do have to start with the research. You do have to know. And one of the things the perceptual map gave us out of our survey was we actually plotted where Gies, wasn't Gies at the time, where the College of Business sat amongst Michigan and Indiana and Wisconsin and all that. And there's a 4-quadrant map. And one end is education, and one end is experience. One end is the institution, and the other top is students. And we landed exactly where we wanted to be, and that was between experience and students. And everybody else, except Wisconsin, basically landed in institution and academics or institution and experience. So is the institution providing the experience, or is the college providing the experience? And we were sitting up there all by ourselves. Wisconsin was kind of below us, but that is what we are. So we are really about a student experience. And everybody said to me, why isn't academics more important? I said, because we all deliver the same academics, just in different ways. So that feeling of involvement, they got buy-in. It was relevant because we didn't have to make up stuff that we're going to do because of this brand. We were already doing all the stuff. We just had to ramp up how we talked about it. And when you can talk about it around a marketing strategy, a brand strategy, then everything becomes so much different and everything becomes so much more powerful. I mean, how many times do you have to say business on purpose when you're doing stuff for us, right? And it's all over State Farm Center, and people then start to recognize it. And then for internal people, it is letting them see it, not just in their everyday relationships, in their everyday experiences, but see it. Like the very first day, when we made the announcement of the name, we gave t-shirts, Gies College of Business t-shirts to everybody. Everybody wanted one. Everyone. I said to Jeff and Larry, even at the time, our first big challenge is we want students who'd usually say, I'm at Illinois studying business. I want them now to say, I'm at Gies or I'm at Gies Business. And that has happened, and it happened very early. And so our experience is our differentiator. All that extracurricular, all that stuff we do outside the classroom, those are all the differentiating things that make us Gies.
I would be remiss if I didn't use the last minutes remaining in the podcast today to talk about you and your feelings as you exit after 9 or 10 years now with Gies and longer than that with the university. Is there any defining achievement or success that sort of highlights your time? I'm sure it's really hard to choose, but it's something that's super gratifying for you of how things have gone since you first walked in the doors of, the business school back in 2016 or 15.
Seeing business on purpose emerge as it did, knowing that we lived up to that promise, watching it transition from this strategic concept to this living, breathing, exciting part of the college's culture, is just really exciting, and it's rare to see. And so I feel very proud, of course, with being able to leave it in a really great spot. And it took a lot of trust and a lot of risk, because we built a staff. We went from 4 to 32. We now have 32 people on our Marcom staff. Jeff reorganized the college so that every piece of marketing communications comes out of this staff. That's very unusual. People say Gies all the time, and seeing the students articulate this in their purpose projects, the faculty integrated in their teaching, alumni give because of it and talk about how it works in their careers. It's really truly become the fabric of who we are. And it's really believable, because that is who we are. So I'm sad, it's bittersweet to leave. But I've been at the university 18 years. I've been in this profession. I counted, somebody asked me the other day, about 45 years. So it's time. And it's really time to pass it off. It's at a great place. And Brad Peterson will be taking over as Chief Marketing Officer the 1st of August. And he was here on campus in both engineering and liberal arts and sciences. And I have every faith that he will trust him explicitly to take this to the next level, as will Dean Elliott. So it's really lovely to think that we've made people think more strategically, and we've built a brand that has staying power.
In 30 seconds or so, what does retirement hold for you? Do you have plans?
I do. We're moving to Wisconsin. We're going to live by Lake Michigan, which you can't hardly beat. But I will always be an orange and blue fan. And I told everybody, I got my master's here and my PhD at Syracuse because I didn't have to change colors. So orange and blue are my colors.
You're not going to go name their business school now, are you?
I am not going to go name their business school. I am not interested in that. I would not work for another university. I might do a little consulting, but
sure.
I might do some writing, go back to some of my research. I did a lot of brand research when I first started, and I'd actually love to write the case for how we built the Gies brand.
Be sure to join us for the next Gies Download. In the meantime, you can learn more about the Gies College of Business at giesbusiness.illinois.edu.